This is the Entrepreneur Unleashed Show, Episode 7, with Toby Alexander.
The Entrepreneur Unleashed.
The Entrepreneur Unleashed.
Entrepreneurs Unleashed. The podcast where purpose and passion become revenue streams.
Be real. Take a stand. Change lives.
Here's your host, Patty Keating.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Unleashed Show. I'm your host, Patty Keating. Entrepreneurs everywhere are creating a new breed of business success. They're making their own rules, taking a stand for their purpose, leading through integrity, and making money by changing lives. Join me each week for compelling messages that will inspire and empower you to unleash your true purpose. Today's guest is Toby Alexander. Toby is a coach, a speaker, a seminar leader, and an author. He's a leading expert in a variety of fields, including energy medicine, emotional mastery, peak emotional and mental strategies for optimal performance. He also is an expert in fifth dimensional physics, which we'll dive into that a little bit, hear a little bit more about that, futures and forex trading. He has a wide variety of skills, and I'm so excited that he's here to share them with you today. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Patty.
How are you?
I'm excellent. You?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here. So I want to just hand it over to you and let you tell us a little bit about your business and what you're up to right now, and just share with the audience what's going on.
Well, my business is basically more mission-oriented. So my main mission is to help people connect to their full potential self and align with more of their soul's purpose. And so my entire focus right now is on helping entrepreneurs to align themselves, their innate gifts and talents, with their business so that they're completely congruent in what they're doing.
And so give us a little glimpse of how that works. When someone comes to you, what happens?
Well, I basically start out by doing a specific analysis or reading of that person and all of their specific innate gifts and talents. And then I find out, what are the specific blocks and restrictions. For example, you may have inherited some belief from your parents, or you may have had some specific emotional trauma in your life. And so any of those blocks and restrictions keep you from fully expressing who you are and being able to embody your true power here.
So what inspired you to start this business? Give us your story.
Well, I was a Big Five consultant manager. I worked for a Big Five consulting firm. And I was working next to this guy who was an independent contractor. And I was in charge of the financial system for this large company. I had complete access to the database, and I was working on the payroll. And I was seeing all these big invoices come in from him. And he was getting paid about $100,000 a month. But I was an employee, and I was getting paid probably 1/10 that. So I was thinking, something's not right here. And so I started studying about how I could do that as well, start my own company and be independent. And so that's how it all began.
How long ago was that?
That was in 1999.
So along your pathway, this journey that you've taken, what obstacles showed up?
Well, the specific obstacles that showed up were just projections of my own consciousness and my own beliefs. And so I recognized that there was a big need to work on myself to clear all of these beliefs and, poverty consciousness that I inherited from my parents. And when I started doing that, rather than focusing on the outside things, that's when everything started changing in my reality.
So give us an example. Tell us a little story about that. Like one way that someone who's listening might be able to do that for themselves as an example.
Well, when I grew up, I constantly heard, we can't afford it, we don't have the money, and it was all about lack and limitation. And so my first job was working on a railroad track in Houston, Texas, making $6 an hour. And so when I was working on that railroad track, I was listening to all the stories of the guys who this wasn't their summer job, this was their career. And so they would tell me all the mistakes that they made and not to make those mistakes and to really, study when you went to college. And so that really motivated me. Plus, it gave me such a strong work ethic that now, whenever I'm creating a webinar or designing a website or helping someone with a soul reading, it's a piece of cake compared to hammering spikes on a railroad track.
Right. Sounds like they mentored you.
Absolutely. Every single experience that I had a golden nugget attached to it.
So how did you move through the challenges that came up?
Well, I learned early that I had the ability to practice something, be extremely focused, master it, and then teach it in a way to others in an easy way that they could understand. And so I started doing this with computer science. I became the youngest certified network engineer that Novell and Cisco ever had. Went on to teach their courses. And then I started becoming interested in more spiritual and more physics-related topics like consciousness and how, God manifests here and how the universal mind individuates into our minds. And so that's what I became really interested in, is how to become free and sovereign by embodying that.
So it sounds like your business is a combination of everything that you've experienced, but I can really see the strong technology part combined with the physics and the consciousness come together.
Absolutely. I mean, the way that I normally explain it is, if you imagine yourself as a computer and you go into the control panel of your mind and you go into add or remove programs, if you look at that list of programs, you're probably going to see all kinds of programs that you don't even know how they got there. All the things you inherited from your parents, like unworthiness, undeservedness, poverty consciousness, lack, limitation, fear, guilt, shame, all those lovely programs that we all have at the unconscious level. So what I basically do is go to that list and help a person to uninstall those programs and then install the higher programs that will help them to get what they want.
And so you did that with yourself first, I'm hearing, in your own journey when you were growing.
Absolutely. I mean, that nothing, can be taught unless you first are that. And so a lot of entrepreneurs think, I have to learn this strategy. I have to do this steps that this other guy did. But until you become that which you want to manifest, it's not manifest. So you must change yourself before you can change the outward holographic manifestation of what you desire.
And what I'm hearing a lot in the way you describe your life is that these challenges that you have encountered, you always found a golden nugget and you always learned a lesson and used it as a way to grow. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, at the time it was happening, I didn't do that. I thought the situation was, absolutely terrible. But, later on, I saw the purpose of it and, I was able to clear my discordant feelings about it. So I could, close the chapter on that and not fall into victimization or blame.
So now when a challenge comes up, how do you look at it?
I just see it as a projection of something that requires to be cleared in me. So I work on the source of that, just like I work with my clients to heal the source of what is ailing them.
So, Toby, what are you passionate about right now? What's going on like right now in your life? I know you've got a young one and some really cool things happening in your environment. Give us a little glimpse of what's happening for you.
Well, what I'm really passionate about is teaching people about who they are at a soul level and how to align themselves with that. And I'm attracting a lot more affluent people into my practice. And so that, as far as work goes, that's what I'm passionate about. I'm also very passionate about golf. And so one of my main goals is to be on the senior PGA Tour when I'm 50, which is in 4 years.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I have a coach for that. I'm using all my mind skills to manifest that. I can see that as possible.
That's an awesome goal, and that game is such a growth opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, I use golf as a meditation because your shot is basically a projection of what's in your mind.
Exactly.
So if you have any anxiety or tension or chaotic thoughts, then that's going to be in your body. And then when you hit your shot, that's going to be a projection of that. So you can regroup. It's like I look at our entire creation as basically a code. So if you've ever done software programming before, you see if you look at a code for a program, if there are bugs in the program, then you're not going to get the desired output. So if I'm not getting the desired output in my life, I basically go into the program of myself and identify, those lines of code that require to be cleared, and then I install the proper code, recompile it, and run it, and get a different result.
In looking at your experience with golf right now, are you finding things that you're recoding for yourself?
Every shot, yes. The other day, I was doing a video on the golf course, and I was teaching about something called Ekagrata, which is a Sanskrit word for one-pointed focus. And so I said, okay, on this shot, I'm going to focus on Ekagrata. So, when my focus is like that, the shot is very precise, and I actually hit the flag with the ball and almost made a hole-in-one. But the challenge is to keep that focus at all times.
Yes.
And most people are all over the place. They're multitasking all day long. They're trying to do too many things. And thus, they're mediocre at a lot of things or failing at everything at the same time rather than just focusing on that one thing.
Absolutely. That's a golden nugget right there. I'm going to put that in the show notes because we all, as entrepreneurs, have a lot of options in every moment. And I love, tell me the word again.
Ekagrata.
Ekagrata. That's awesome.
Ekagrata.
Awesome.
Yeah, I wrote a book called The Great Master, which has 27 of these specific steps for self-actualization that have a specific Sanskrit word and an energy, frequency, and vibration that when you say the word, it activates the frequency of that within you.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes too, because I'm sure some people are going to want to look at that and use it. It's a powerful tool. My 15-year-old just made the golf team. He's a freshman, and he's at his first tournament. Actually, they're leaving in about an hour. He goes out of school to go play golf. Tough life, but I have him. I have him listening to psycho-cybernetics, and maybe I'll give him this book as well, because getting your mind slowed down enough to really focus is so important. I took him to Bandon, which is a beautiful course in Oregon, for spring break, and I caddied for him. We played several rounds, and just watching, I can see watching him and knowing him as well as I do some of what you're talking about. So,
yeah, I mean, I trained with a Zen master who is also a teacher of golf. He started Zen golf, and so taking what I already knew and then applying it to golf was like starting with the beginner's mind, emptying your cup of all your knowledge and righteousness, and really becoming a student of the game.
Yeah. So, Toby, what's your vision for the next 5 years? You mentioned your vision early on. Tell us what's going to be happening next in your business.
Well, my vision is to do massive webinars teaching people about the power of consciousness and specifically clearing global things in the collective mind that are manifesting discordant situations in the world. So just like, Obama has been doing these Google Hangouts, my vision is to be doing a Google Hangout with, say, 1 million people on it, and doing specific DNA activations and code clearings, and having everyone in the world experience this energetically, because I can talk about it all day, but till you experience it yourself, it's not a reality for you.
Right. And there's a certain percentage, I'm trying to recall the name of the effect. There's a certain percentage of the population that when they reach a level of consciousness, the surrounding consciousness also drastically increases.
Absolutely. They call it, the 144,000.
Yep.
So, there are certain people on the planet that have a higher frequency naturally than the rest. And so those are the 144,000 that are actually spoken about in the Bible. So when those people become awakened and they raise their frequency, they become the light holders of the earth. And what happens is their frequency activates the consciousness of everyone else, and it forms a global awakening. It's like the whole earth reaches critical mass. And that's really the purpose of all this work.
That is one big vision.
Yeah, I mean, when your mission is your business and your vision is your mission, then you don't require an outside motivation.
Yep. You wake up every day inspired.
Mm-hmm.
So, Toby, give us a glimpse at the best advice you've ever received. What would that be?
Was to know thyself. I had a mentor, and this specific mentor is known as the Deathless Avatar. And so I started studying the people in history that have, achieved a sense of freedom, of multidimensional freedom, and were said to be immortal. And so I thought, well, if someone was able to do that, then it must be possible. And so, that's basically what he told me is when you know yourself, you can go within and you can clear anything that is preventing you from embodying that. And so it's really all about knowing yourself, knowing who you are, and being absolutely clear with that. And when you do that, you have no attachment to what other people think about you. You don't have any need for love, approval, and appreciation. And you can just focus on being who you are.
That's good advice right there. Tools and resources. What gadgets or tools do you use to make your life easier these days?
Well, I really focus on using as little gadgets as possible. The only real tools I use are the webinar systems, like GoToWebinar, Omnovia, and, of course, Skype and Infusionsoft.
So it would be tools to help you reach people.
Absolutely, just online. To get your message out there. Mm-hmm.
And what resources do you have that you would recommend to us? Books, podcasts, blogs, anything that you like that you think the audience might benefit from?
Yeah, the first book that I read that really awakened the reality of consciousness and holographic reality was called The Holographic Universe by Talbot. And so basically it describes through quantum physics how everything that we see around us is a hologram, even the brain. So once I studied that book for probably 2 years, and I became obsessed with it. I practiced it. Thought manifestation became something that I worked on every single day. And what I realized is that in quantum physics, everything exists as a wave until you focus your attention on it. In other words, whatever you expect to see, you collapse those waves into space-time particle events. So everything is about your intention. And so the entrepreneurs and the business people that don't know this, they're not using that power to manifest what they want. And they limit the way things manifest, because if they do want to manifest something like, say $100,000 per month, they think in their mind, this is the only way I can do that. But when you set your intention in the now and you let that go to be manifest by, the infinite awareness, your higher self, the manifestation will happen in ways that you could have never thought of. And so that specific book, The Holographic Universe, was the first book that really explained that scientifically. And then, from there, I read 2 books a day. So I'm constantly learning, and, I go to sleep with audiobooks, and it's all just basically going into my subconscious.
So I was going to ask you, how do you read 2 books a day? Are you physically reading them? Are you listening? Do you read them with a speed reader?
Yeah, I'm a very fast reader, so I can read very quickly, and I like to, at night, listen to audiobooks. And so, I do an audiobook a night, and, I can read 1 book during the day. I just use my intuition as to what is the next book. And, some of the other books that I recommend would be Autobiography of a Yogi. So that basically describes my mentor, Babaji, in chapter 33. And, I wrote 2 books with him, mentored by my avatar and the great master. So when I go back and look at our conversations, there's really not any books out there that really compare to the frequency of that and the depth of that, because I was able to ask him all these questions that I wanted to know. Like, how does God individuate into us? Or, what happens when the soul decides to incarnate and choose a physical body? Do we pick our parents? How much of the Bible is true? All these different types of questions that most people have.
And those are in the book, in chapter 33, where you were asking him?
No, chapter 33, Autobiography of a Yogi, that was written by Yogananda, which is, he's the yogi that Babaji sent to the United States, I think back in the 70s, to introduce yoga to America. Babaji was one of his masters or mentors.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes too.
Yeah, but just hearing what these yogis can do gives you an idea of what's possible when you activate your potential, especially of your mind.
So, Toby, if you were to do it all over again, what would you tell your younger self?
What I would tell my younger self is not to forget that I have all the possibilities within. And, a lot of people grow up in dysfunctional families where they get programmed or they inherit all these things from their parents. And it usually takes them about 33 years to even start having an awakening and to realize that, the things that they were living were really not them. So if I knew that, from an early age, then I would have been able to start much sooner.
So know that all the potential is within. Is that what you said?
Absolutely. Everyone is basically an individuation of God, but very few people are willing to affirm that or work on clearing the blockages to embodying that.
That's awesome advice. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with all of us today. I appreciate it, and I look forward to more webinars. I've attended a couple.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to continued progress and clarity.
Thanks, Toby.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Entrepreneur Unleashed Show. If you did, please go to pattykeating.com and let me know what you're up to this year in your business. While you're there, be sure to grab your copy of 5 Quick Ways to Share Your Expertise.